President Barack Obama forcefully defended the National Security Agency's collection of phone records and electronic communications earlier today. Check this out.
The programs that have been discussed over the last couple of days in the press are secret in the sense that they're classified, but they're not secret in the sense that when it comes to telephone calls, every member of Congress has been briefed on this program. I think at the outset it's important to understand that your duly elected representatives have been consistently informed on exactly what we're doing.
Joining me to discuss this is Zach Carter, HuffPost political economy reporter and chief skeptic. Zach, you heard what the president said. Is this a reasonable defense of NSA?
You know, I think the most telling point of his defense really is where he points out that this type of spying activity, this type of snooping, has been supported by large bipartisan majorities of Congress since at least 2006. I think that really cuts to the core of a lot of Obama's presidency. It seems to be the case over and over again that when he wants to find whether something is good or not, he doesn't turn to the policy specifics, the way that some policy plays out on the ground for real Americans. He turns to Washington and says, well, did Republicans and Democrats agree on this? And it seems to me that that's his litmus test here, and that because Republicans are on board, this must be okay. That strikes me as a very strange defense of these programs.
But is that the defense of the program, or is that an implicit critique of people who are challenging the program? In other words, Republicans are suddenly feigning indignation. I can't believe someone would spy on us. I can't believe someone would compromise our civil liberties. Yet in 2001, George Bush did the very same thing, some would argue. The Patriot Act ushered this moment in, and there wasn't a Republican dissenter in the bunch.
Right. And I think you have seen some of the more traditional hardline, national security, anti-civil liberties, frankly, Republicans come to the defense of the program. You've seen Lindsey Graham and John McCain say this is totally fine. What's the big deal? Just as you've seen Dianne Feinstein and Harry Reid say, hey, we're just protecting America here. I think that is a good critique of Republicans who want to take advantage of this for partisan gain. But I don't think it really matters on the actual substance of the programs, which is that the president has authorized these agencies to monitor people's phone records. They haven't monitored the substance of phone calls, but they can monitor the substance of emails, and that seems to be a very very broad authority that it should have been troubling to people for a long time. It's not unique to this administration, certainly, but I think it shows that this administration has sort of doubled down on many things that progressives thought were problematic about the Bush administration.
Should we be surprised, though, Zach? You know, I just want to point out that in January of 2008, I wrote a piece called "Not My Brand of Hope" for TheRoot.com, where I critiqued Obama and said that these very things would happen, and people on the left said I was crazy. Are the bulk of the left-wing supporters of President Obama now frustrated and disappointed? Are they not getting the Obama they were promised?
I think I think that your piece was very prescient, Mark, and I think that speaks to one of the reasons why you're a fantastic host to have at HuffPost Live is that you're a very, very critical thinker, and you're not a partisan hack. But I think the Democratic Party has been very reluctant to criticize the president. I think they've been on a host of issues, on economic policy and on civil liberties as well. I think if you had been paying attention to these issues, you would see that actually, I have friends who do national security reporting who say, "Oh my God, I can't believe everybody's freaking out about this. I just always assumed that the president was spying on everything that I did all the time." Euphemistically for the entire executive branch, but I do think that some of the shock here is a little bit, maybe a little bit feigned, but I think it is a real issue. I really don't think you can look at the scope of look, in 2011, Ron Wyden, a senator from Oregon, who is otherwise a very kind of milquetoast, bipartisan kind of guy, put forward an amendment to the Patriot Act reauthorization, which would have required the government to stop having secret interpretations of the law. That if you were going to have a legal interpretation of a statute like the Patriot Act, it had to be public. You couldn't just say, hey, the government interprets it this way, and then we're going to do stuff, and you guys can't know about what's going on. That amendment failed overwhelmingly. It wasn't even close. Congress just thought it was a good idea to give the executive branch power to interpret the law in secret, and that seems very, very troubling. And as you're saying, it's not something that should surprise Americans, because this has been the standard position of Republicans and Democrats since about 2001. But I still think it's a very troubling position.
No, I think you're absolutely right on that. I want to move on to another story because there's so much going on. This is not too far from me anyway, Zach, here in New York, but we're talking about New Jersey. A member of Newark Mayor Cory Booker's campaign staff says that Booker is planning to enter the special election to fill the U.S. Senate seat previously held by Frank Lautenberg, and is planning to announce this tomorrow. This is the part where you get shocked. You act shocked, Zach.
Yeah, I can't believe Cory Booker's running. I mean, what was the big comment that he made during the presidential campaign, that he was nauseated, or the American people were nauseated by President Obama's attacks on the private equity industry? I mean, I think Cory Booker he's cultivated a very good reputation as a practical and aggressive problem solver as the mayor of Newark. But it seemed pretty clear to me from that point on, when he was getting in bed, basically making overtures to very wealthy industries that happen to be quite prominent in New York and New Jersey, that he was going to be running for Senate or governor. Or
governor, right. We didn't know which one. It was only a question of what. But I think the way he cozied up next to Chris Christie showed that he knew Chris Christie wasn't the fight he wanted to pick, and that it probably made more sense for him to go into the Senate. It was an interesting move, and I'm hopeful that we have much more to talk about with that special election. Do you think Booker wins that just pretty much first round knockout?
I mean, unless he does something unbelievably unforeseen and stupid. If he has like an Anthony Weiner moment, then yeah, he's out. But I think barring something catastrophic like that, he should win this in a cakewalk by an overwhelming majority. He's enormously popular. He's pretty good on the national stage. When he slips up with stuff like the nauseated by private equity attacks thing, he's mostly just pissing off people inside the Beltway and inside the Democratic Party establishment. He's not really bothered, upsetting people in New Jersey who are looking for, firefighters and basic social services, which he has a record of delivering, very well in Newark. So I think he wins this in a cakewalk.
Absolutely. All right. The DOJ is arguing now that Obama's administration's targeted drone strikes against American citizens are constitutional. That's right. I didn't say unconstitutional. I said constitutional. And the reason, in part, is because, well, the president said so. That was their reasoning in a court filing this week in response to a lawsuit by the ACLU and the Center for Constitutional Rights on behalf of 3 American citizens killed in drone strikes. Zach, I see you doing this to your head as I'm saying this. What else? Give us some details really quickly before we run. What else did the administration claim? Is it a fair argument, or is this another overreach of executive power?
Well, this is a lawsuit that was filed regarding the government's assassination of Anwar al-Awlaki and his son. Anwar al-Awlaki was an American citizen who was, believed, suspected. There was evidence that he was involved in some Al-Qaeda-oriented sort of activities promoting terrorism, things like that. It's actually kind of vague. It seems pretty clear that he'd become an unsavory character, but actually the charges against him are not particularly explicit. And his son was never suspected of anything. He was never suspected of being a terrorist or anything like this. And so the fact, I'm going to get ambushed by my dog here. Sorry about that. So the fact that the administration.
Can I see your dog, Zach?
Pepper, come here, girl. The fact that these people already died. His son was 16 years old. He was killed.
I'm thinking Pepper's pro-drone here, Zach, because you're saying things and Pepper doesn't seem pleased.
Pepper gets excited. She gets very worked up at the prospect of being killed by a robot in the sky. But basically, this lawsuit is kind of after the fact. It can't accomplish anything. It can't save anybody's life. These people are already dead. But it is interesting that it's forced the government to defend this type of activity. And I think it's great that the government said, the Obama administration here said that the lawsuit plaintiffs failed to allege the violation of any clearly established constitutional rights. And I think that's an astonishing statement, given that 2 people were killed by the government here. They were killed. They weren't arrested without on some trumped up charge. They weren't kept in detention for a long period of time. They were killed. And it's not even clear what the charges were that were brought against these people. So the fact that the administration now has to say this was constitutional because we said it was, and also you guys haven't alleged any constitutional violations anyway, I just find a really breathtaking defense.
I do too, Zach. I also find your insights breathtaking, sir.
So does my dog. Pepper's really, really having a great time right now.
Well, I'll see you and Pepper on Monday for more brilliant insights, sir.
All right. Take care, Mark. Good to see you.
All right. Stay with us. Much more coming up here on HuffPost Live.